You hear me?
I do.
You do?
I hear you.
Okay. Then it's Dirk. Has something to do with that crazy background he keeps jumping around in.
Dirk, you are now one of the hosts. I can also make Steve a host now that we have multiple host capability. And Miss Haig, are you Hog? I know you told me how to pronounce this on last Thursday, but are you the presenter?
Yes, hi, I'm here from the core. So, and I have my PowerPoint queued up on my. Yeah, just let me know when you're ready to share.
We met last Thursday at Layton's meeting. I just know you told me how to pronounce your last name, and I seem to have forgotten.
That's right. I guess you do IT for like everybody in the Keys.
I'm an attorney. I'm just an.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. So you do all the
I happen to be playing IT for everybody in the Keys, though.
Yes,
okay.
yes, he does.
Okay.
10 grand or something. Yeah, so you gotta do it. So we sign off on it. Council. Thanks. Bye.
Rachel, I apologize, but I think with the way this meeting got set up, I'm not able to share presenting capability with you. Could you send me your PowerPoint and I'll go ahead and share the screen?
Yeah, sure. Yes, just give me 1 minute. Actually, I think I have Ashton, our project manager, for me. So yeah, I have, it's the gjones@floridalaw.com.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that will be coming to you momentarily.
Oh, you know what I'm going to do? Okay. Rachel, I'll do you one better. Dirk, for whatever reason, I'm having difficulty sharing multiple host capability, but I took it back. I'm going to give it to Rachel during her presentation, and I'm going to need you to give it back to me when you're done, okay?
Okay. Yeah, and actually, I just sent it to you too, Galen, if you need it. So everybody's got a copy of it electronically. So whoever can manage to go electronic first gets it.
Is the Corps presentation up first?
It's close.
Do you still need me to email that or?
No, Rachel, I think it'll be easier for you to run your own presentation. So I'm just going to give you host capability, but I'll take it back from you after you finished up.
Okay, I'm not a Zoom expert by any means, but I mean, the share screen button on looks like it's still functional. I mean, I don't know if I need to be the host. Maybe I can just.
Yeah, try sharing it now. Maybe it was set up correctly.
Randy in?
Down here.
Ah, here we go. I figured it out. You are good to go, Rachel.
Okay.
Randy.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
looks like,
Yeah, Randy's in. I see it, Randy.
Got me?
If you
Wow.
have needed,
You're all set up. I activated sharing privileges for everybody.
okay. So can people see the,
Yes, ma'am.
okay, perfect. So, but I guess I'll hop off though, cause like, or, stop sharing cause in case or I don't know if I guess I'm first or.
yeah, you're close to first. Also,
Second.
Second, I think, yeah.
Is Chuck available?
I don't see him online yet.
He's not in the waiting room. I'm keeping an eye on that.
Hey, Dirk,
Yeah,
Steve Cook. I noticed on Layton, they did not read the statement of the chair. Mr. Galen said that, not to be talking at you, Mr. Galen Jones, but you said that once it had been said at one meeting, it didn't have to be said again. Is that correct? Because it seems like not a lot of people are on. We probably ought to do it again.
The idea with that, Steve, was just because I specifically had Layton at the previous meeting adopt those instructions that were read into the record. Those were
Oh, fair
adopted as
enough.
policies for all future meetings, so that's why we were able to skip it. The council can adopt those for future meetings upon the recommendation of Mr. Smith, of course.
Fair enough. Thank you, Galen, and hello. Carlos.
Carlo.
Let's see, how many people can I see here? Oh. Councilman, this is Sheriff Wamsey. DB, Don Hiller. Mr. Souse. Mr. Cannon.
do we know who we're waiting on?
I see 3 councilmen. Is Doc in here yet? I don't see Doc yet.
Don't see him.
Who is listed as iPhone? I'm going to start renaming people.
That's Randy Murns.
That'd be me. Yep.
And I'm sorry, what was the last name?
Mearns, Mearns.
So we have Steve, Mark, and Louie. I think we're missing Dan.
Yeah, I think Dan is the only one still.
We missing Chuck.
Yes, sorry, Chuck and Dan.
Chuck just went as
John, there's John.
Sorry?
John's here.
So you were stepped on. I don't know who was here. Oh, there's Chuck.
There's Chuck. Doc. All right.
Oh, there he is. Looking all crazy. 1 minute till. Hey, Dirk, where do we read this?
Sorry, what are you trying to read?
No, do we read the statement of the chair right before the call-in stuff?
Yeah, go ahead. That's fine.
Um,
Whenever we call to order, go ahead and read that.
Okay, sure. It's kind of out of order on the page, so I just was. All right. I guess let's bring this virtual meeting of Tuesday, June 9th, 2020 for Marathon City Council to order. If you'd all please rise and let's recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okey doke. So with that, before the roll call, let us read about virtual public meetings. The City of Marathon statement of the chair pursuant to Executive Order number 2069 issued by the Office of Governor Ron DeSantis on 20 March 2020. Municipalities may conduct meetings of their governing boards without having a quorum of its members present physically or at any specific location, and utilizing communications media technology such as telephonic or video conferencing as provided by Section 120.545B2 Florida statutes. Procedures for the public comment will be explained by the city attorney shortly and may be adopted by the council for all virtual meetings in the future. The members of the city council appearing remotely for this meeting are John Bardis, Councilman, Louis Gonzalez, Vice Mayor, Mark San Martin, Councilman, and Dr. Daniel Zieg, Councilman. Thank you. Do we want to call the roll or go through the call-in procedures, sir?
I'll state the call-in procedures for the record.
Thank you.
Members of the public who wish to comment on matters before the city council may do so by either calling 305-289-4130 or emailing City of Marathon, all one word, at CI, the letter CNI, .marathon.fl.us with your name, address, and phone number where you can be reached during the meeting on June 9th at 4 p.m. or calling 301-715-8592. And upon receiving a voice prompt, dialing meeting ID 917-9713-6932 and password 925920. Members of the public who participate in the meeting through this option must mute themselves until called upon to speak.
And having said that, sir, whoever is watching TV while being on a Zoom call, please either turn down your TV or mute your mic if you're not speaking. Thank you. Diane, can you call the roll?
Sure. Councilmember Bardis,
Here.
Councilmember San Martin,
Here.
Councilmember Zieg,
Here.
Vice Mayor Gonzalez, Vice Mayor Gonzalez.
Here.
Mayor Cook,
Present.
we have a quorum.
All right. Now it's time for the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions?
I would like to make an addition.
State your name. This is Doc Zig. Is this Dan? Go ahead, Doc.
I would like to ask that we have an update on the city attorney position from Mr. Smith.
Okay, let's put that as D Delta application for attorney, Mr. Smits.
Yes, sir.
No, I was just copying. Is there
Got it.
anything else? Any other ads? City manager have any ads?
Yes, sir. I'd like to pull resolution 2020-17 from the agenda.
Yes,
And
sir.
I'd like to add to city manager report, item Bravo, heavy equipment surplus receipt. And we've currently got our new building official online, Mr. Noe Martinez. So I wanted to also add item Charlie to 7, just to introduce Noe.
Roger that. So we have heavy equipment update or receipt for Bravo, and Charlie is Noe Martinez intro.
Move to approve the agenda as amended.
Point of order, just, we did get this laid down.
Yes, point of order.
Resolution 2020-35. Do we need to include this tonight?
No, that's not a laydown. That is, that's a laydown for the council, but not for anyone else. It was always on the website, et cetera.
Oh, are you saying it just never hit the book?
That's correct. I hit print, and then once we got it, we put it online, so no one else would see it as a laydown.
Oh, okay, just,
Okay.
thanks.
All righty, so back to the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Can you state your name? Who was that?
Louis Gonzalez.
Louis. All right, Vice Mayor seconds. All right, we have an agenda. Next is public comments on agenda items. Do we have any callers?
This is Galen Jones. I would add that Diane Scott had requested an opportunity to participate. I did call her twice today, asking to provide her with the dial-in information. I spoke with her once. She did not have a pen and paper handy. I've called her back twice since then and left a voicemail with dial-in instructions.
I also sent her a photo of the dial-in instructions, so she is made completely aware. And I spoke with her for an hour and a half about it. Is that the only person on, or that was potentially on?
Another gentleman named Mr. Matthews, who has also been provided the dial-in information. I'm not sure if he was planning on making public comment or not.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I guess we can make that under citizen comments. I don't see that here. I guess we're doing that a little different. Next is city council items, approval of the minutes as amended.
That's under consent, Steve.
Oh, righty. Look at that. Mr. Asterisk sitting there looking at me. All right, I guess we are at 6 Bravo, 40th annual 7 Mile Bridge Run request.
Mr. Mayor, I'll chime in. This is a annual routine request to have the 40th annual 7 Mile Bridge Run. So if I could get approval from the council or any discussion on the topic, we can move it on.
Move approval.
Actually, I have a question. I have Diane Scott on the phone. Well, I don't have her on the phone. She's listening in and she's in the waiting room, I guess. Do we want to go back to this before we go on with the bridge run?
Sure.
You have a motion on the floor.
We have a motion on the floor.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hearing no no's, motion passes. We have Diane Scott somewhere, Mr. Jones, in the waiting room of death.
There is nobody in the waiting room as of now.
Okay, because she just texted me that she can hear us and she is on the phone. I don't know what that means. So let's move on.
There
We'll
are
catch
two
up to her.
people. There are two people on the phone that I'll go ahead and unmute now just to make sure that they're able to speak, but I did not mute them. Both are unmuted now.
Yes, Diane Scott is on the phone. Hello?
Hello, Miss Scott.
Okay, I'm on the phone. They have me muted. Can I start talking?
Start talking.
Okay, Diane Scott, Marathon, Florida Council. I want to say for the record that one of our council members needs to step down and the clerk needs to be fired or demoted.
Miss Scott, this is a call in for agenda items.
No, I want to talk on public comment.
This is not public comment. This is agenda items, ma'am. Is that
Okay,
right, Mr.
so
Jones? Galen?
they knew
Is
I
that
was calling
correct?
in on public comment.
If the mayor instructs me, I will go ahead and mute Ms. Scott until public comment.
City manager, how do we do this? It's not time for citizen comments, but do you want to let it roll?
I would defer to the city attorney.
I don't see where we have citizen comments other than there on the agenda.
Okay.
So let's
let it
have
roll.
her comments now.
All right, I apologize, Ms. Scott, please speak, if you will.
Okay, I'm going to
Sorry.
start over.
Go ahead.
Okay, Diane Scott, Marathon, Council. I like to say one of our council members needs to step down and the clerk needs to be fired or demoted. I'm a strong believer of that. And I also want to say this city, they need their own police department badly. Our top law enforcement ignores any complaints I make, any of it. It's all because of the sign I wear. Whew. The head officer at the Marathon substation made threatening comments to me. I felt it and I called him out on it, and he tried to recant his story. I called IA, didn't believe me. I called our top law enforcement, would not answer my calls, period. There's no oversight. That's why we have to watch who we elect in office. I have reported our top law enforcement and our top prosecuting attorney to the Commission of Ethics. People ask me sometimes, why am I afraid to wear my sign? I told them, no, this is how I protest. You know, it's we the people, power to the people. Black lives matter, all lives matter. But Marathon, I'm a strong believer that Marathon needs its own police department. I will do the research for you all, you know, because you need it. You need accountability. You don't need nobody in office like our top law enforcement. Dangerous. I'm sorry. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. If there are
All
no
right.
other callers. Were there any other callers?
There's one other phone
Checking
number
now,
that's
Mr. Mayor.
muted.
Checking now.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said. Is there one that's muted and then?
No, there is one other actual dial in. I do not know who it is, but they are not muted. They could speak if they'd like.
This is Sarah Mathis from the weekly newspaper, and I'm content to listen, folks.
All right, thank you, Sarah. Nice to have you on. All right, moving back to Charlie Bravo, or rather Charlie 6 Bravo, 40th annual 7 Mile Bridge Run request. We already did that. Trying to catch up on this. I guess we're at Charlie Army Corps of Engineers presentation. Ms. Rachel, you're on.
Okay, great. Let me share my screen here. Okay, can everyone see if I can get rid of this? There we go. Can everyone see the cover slide of my presentation?
Yes.
Great. Okay, well, thanks for having me at your meeting tonight. I'm here to basically just provide an overview on our Army Corps of Engineers Florida Keys Coastal Storm Risk Management Study that's been going on for about a year and a half with Monroe County as our non-federal sponsor. I'm Rachel Haug. I'm the lead planner for the study for the Corps. And basically here just to give you some background and then hopefully gather some feedback on the plan after we go over all the details. So like I said, the purpose is basically just to provide some background. When we had our planning chief from the Corps at my office brief the Monroe Board of County Commissioners at their May meeting, and they had asked us if, you know, we had gotten feedback on the plan from each of the municipalities. We did have webinars for city staff back in the couple months ago. I know the one in for Marathon was on March 25th, and I actually did that webinar. It was a pretty detailed, it was more detailed than the one today, but that was with city staff, and the county commission had requested that we go back and actually brief the elected officials, so the city councils for each of the municipalities. So that's basically why I'm here today. And then our planning chief will be going back to, there's a June 17th county commission meeting that our planning chief will be basically briefing at that meeting, and then sort of hopefully getting the green light from the county commissioners to release the draft report that we've been working on that basically goes into a lot of detail and documents our study up to and the analysis up to this point to get to the tentatively selected plan. So the purpose of our study is basically looking at solutions that will reduce damage to structures in the Florida Keys primarily, and also overall reducing to a certain extent reducing risk from and impacts of coastal storms. And we are taking into account sea level rise, but not specifically formulating plans for that sort of everyday sunny day flooding, but we are incorporating sea level rise assumptions into our, when we plan for the future and looking at water levels that could be expected from hurricanes and other coastal storms. This is just an overview of the Corps planning process and sort of schedule for a civil works study, any study really, not just civil or not just coastal storm risk. So right now we are where that pinkish red star is there in the middle. So we're basically about halfway through the study. So we, back in January, had that tentatively selected plan milestone. We have milestones where we basically report to our agency leaders on, at various points in the study. The tentatively selected plan milestone is where we explain to them what our tentatively selected plan is and how we arrived at that conclusion, and then they sort of give us the go ahead to move forward and release a draft report. So we're in between that milestone and then the next major one, which is the agency decision milestone, which is currently scheduled for, it says actually 10 October here, we just moved the date slightly, it'll be at the end of October, but coming up this fall. So just to sort of jump into the plan up front and what it includes, we had an array of 8 alternatives, including 1 alternative for no action. And the alternative that we have identified as for our tentatively selected plan is alternative 7, which includes some shoreline stabilization or sort of riprap revetment in 6 different areas along US 1 overseas highway to reduce erosion and damage to the roadway. And then the majority of the plan is non-structural measures for residential and non-residential structures that we've identified at risk for damage. In the future, we look at a 50-year period of analysis. So it's sort of estimating which structures we believe will be damaged over that period in the future due to hurricanes and other coastal storms. And so those non-structural measures include elevation of residential properties, floodproofing of basically all non-residential, mostly commercial, but anything that's not residential, and then acquisition of residential properties. And also there's sort of a component where we call out specifically critical infrastructure that would be floodproofing if it is at risk. So the overall, first cost of the plan is about $3.8 billion. That would be cost shared, 65% federally funded, and then 35% non-federal. And again, the non-federal sponsor for the study is Monroe County. So the average annual benefit, and so in this case, that's basically reduced damage to structures in the roadway, is approximately $215 million, and that's annualized. That's over, per year over a 50-year period. And our benefit to cost ratio is 2.45. It's important to note that the Corps, we are not allowed to recommend a project for construction, which is ultimately what the study is doing, is recommending, the plan that at the end of the 3-year study, which we're about halfway through, once we have a final recommendation, that plan would get authorized by Congress for construction. And we have to have a benefit to cost ratio of 1.0 or greater. So we're perfectly good there with that 2.45. So just to kind of go a little more into the non-structural measures that we are looking at as part of this tentatively selected plan. For residential, like I said, we're looking at elevation and acquisition of structures. And I just want to, I guess, try to explain a little bit how each structure was identified for which measure, because I know just in briefings I've done, there's been a lot of questions about that. So basically we looked at all the structures in the Florida Keys, residential, non-residential, and, figured out, we have an economic model that sort of takes different, storm assumptions and simulations and water levels, and we determine what structures would be damaged and how much in the future of that 50-year period. And so the two measures we can use are, non-structural for residential structures are elevation and acquisition. And we actually, looked at the applicability of each of those measures across all of the residential structures that were getting damaged in the Keys, and then compared which one basically reduced the most damage for the cost. So elevation is a generally less costly measure to implement, construct than acquisition. However, there's a limitation to how high we can elevate a structure. Generally, it's about 12 feet above the adjacent ground level. So when you're looking at a place that's really vulnerable, like the Florida Keys, it's possible that, depending on the first floor elevation of the house and what the water levels could be expected from hurricane surges, it's possible that, we couldn't elevate to eliminate or prevent, some of the damage that could be occurring from some bigger storm events. So, yes, it's less expensive to elevate a home. However, you also might be leaving some of that damage out there and not mitigating that, versus acquisition is a more expensive measure. But, if a home is acquired, then it's not there anymore. It's not getting damaged. You're sort of getting that full, you're reducing all of the possible damage there. So I hope that makes sense. I know I've had a lot of questions on that. It's sort of hard to distill down like a year's worth of analysis, but hopefully that kind of indicates how, we just get a big question of how was one decided over the other. And a lot of it depends on, the certain structure characteristics, what the first floor elevation is, and, what the water levels could be expected are, at various points in the Keys. So it sort of depends on a structure by structure basis. And then for non-structural measures, basically for the non-residential, we're looking at flood proofing. Once the structure gets to be a certain size, sort of beyond your, 1, 2, 3 story sort of home, you can't elevate it anymore, and acquiring commercials not really done, Corps doesn't, but so we're looking at flood proofing there, and you can flood proof a building to up to 3 feet above grade, the ground elevation. So we're looking at flood proofing for structures that are non-residential. So this is just a little more detail on the number of structures that are included for each measure in the TSP. So we're looking at approximately 7,100 elevations of, again, of residential or home structures. And the total cost for that is about $1.9 billion. is a large portion of the plan cost. And then there's about 3,900 floodproofing of, again, the non-residential for about 812 million. And there's about 300 acquisitions of residential homes recommended in the TSP for a cost of about 290 million. And then there's some numbers you'll notice sort of in that second bullet under each of those. That's according to our models and our economic analysis, that's the exact number. In the report, we'll just be putting the rounded figures because as this disclaimer says, with the asterisk on the bottom, this is, again, the tentatively selected plan, and we will be doing a lot of further refinement and, optimization of this plan and really kind of getting into some of the details now that we have certain structures, narrowed down. We can kind of take a deeper dive and make sure that we're incorporating, appropriate Florida building code things, for elevation, or, just checking on the, some different requirements that we couldn't do when we were looking at, 40-something thousand structures across the Keys. So again, so this disclaimer on the bottom, I don't think the plan is going to drastically change from what it is now, but certainly those numbers, that are going to be in the draft report are not going to be identical, once we get to that final plan. We're going to continue to improve our analysis on that. And then this is just a nice table that shows the breakdown of the measures for each of the incorporated cities and then unincorporated Monroe. I do want to note, I went back and I looked, so since March 25th, when I did the webinar for the city staff, we did rerun our economic model and we refined some of our storm, like in coastal, the water level assumptions. And so the numbers sort of changed from that time that, we presented in March to now. So I did want to point out, just for transparency's sake, that when I briefed in March, let's see, there were, how many structures? 40? It was about 40 structures identified for acquisition in Marathon. And now it's 84. So I just wanted to point that out, that it did go up with the latest, 40 structures. So it did go up quite a bit. And obviously, it's basically Marathon and Key West, and actually Key Colony have, the majority of the acquisitions in terms of the municipalities. So just. And so this is actually a slide. I know, I think some people were at the, have maybe, attended some of the county commission meetings recently, or the one in May. And there is, of course, a discussion that, the Corps has the current policy for core projects that include non-structural is that acquisition must be implemented if it is recommended as the plan, to go forth for implementation. So basically, it is mandatory, even if, it requires the use of eminent domain to get that structure acquired, which for obvious reasons, is, create some nonprofit sponsors, have a lot of questions about this, and but that's the policy. So there's been a lot of discussion, I know, like with the county, and, Rhonda Haig has been our main point of contact, and we've been working with her. And I think, Marathon should be aware of this policy. We've been talking about it, but, Monroe County has told us that they would not support a plan with that includes acquisition, if that mandatory policy stands. So basically they have submitted a formal request to the Army Corps of Engineers, basically requesting a waiver from that policy. So that would, basically they're looking to have acquisition be voluntary as floodproofing and elevation are. So like right now, if your home is recommended for elevation, basically whenever this project, goes to get implemented, someone approach you and say, hey, we would like to elevate your home. Would you like us to elevate your home? And if someone says, oh, no, thank you, then, that's sort of the end of it. But, acquisition under the current policy, not so much. But basically this waiver, if it is approved, would make acquisition voluntary as well in terms of participation. So that waiver request must be approved, not even just by, leaders of the Army Corps of Engineers, but it goes all the way up to the Secretary of the Army for Civil Works. So we are right now basically sort of doing the documentation and coordinating internally. It does go through our headquarters, but then the decision is made at the Secretary of the Army level. So we're working on transmitting that now. We don't have, we're not quite sure when a decision will be made on that. But, we're going to keep track of that and try to, push along the best we can. So in the meantime, as far as we know, the county is looking to proceed with this tentatively selected plan. The draft report would not include any identifying information for acquisition homes, so like no addresses or even maps or anything. So it would just say approximately 300 homes have been identified for acquisition. So that's, there is sort of an issue that we're still looking into with our attorneys as far as like FOIA requests for that information. And our latest, what we've been told by our attorneys is, they'll do what they can to protect that information from release, because this is sort of a pre-decisional, plan, and it will be changing in the future. But they can't 100% guarantee that, I guess each FOIA request has to be considered separately, that there may not be some FOIA requests that for whatever reason they, can refuse. So we have made that, risk, I guess, known to the county and everyone that, it's possible, hopefully unlikely, but possible, that it could be possibly released in a FOIA request. But if no decision or request is, or we kind of don't have a decision, or the request is denied for that waiver, basically by that agency decision milestone, which is in October, the county basically has said that, because they don't support the mandatory acquisition, they would likely just go with a locally preferred plan that, would basically get them around having that acquisition, be an issue. So the next slide discusses locally preferred plans. In any civil work study that the Corps does, there's always an option for a non-federal sponsor to select a locally preferred plan for various reasons. There are local preferences, obviously, and the Corps recognizes that. So here, like I said, if something happened in the Corps, we don't have a decision on that waiver request from the mandatory acquisition policy, or we do have a decision and that the policy stands, it's likely that Monroe County would just go with some sort of locally preferred plan. And so a locally preferred plan can be, as long as it's economically justified, again, has that BCR of 1.0 or greater, we can pretty much kind of look at all of the measures that we have kind of evaluated and combine that into a plan that's acceptable to a non-federal sponsor. And it's important to note, so if the cost for a locally preferred plan increases, the non-federal sponsor, in this case, the county, would have to pay, whatever the cost is above that government identified plan. But if the cost is the same or less, then, the original cost share stands at 65-35%. So still 65% federal, 35% non-federal. And I talked to Rhonda about these examples of LPP. And so, this is just some things that we've sort of thought about, considering that probably the main driver for a locally preferred plan would be that acquisition, the mandatory acquisition. So, it's possible we could just remove all the acquisition structures from the plan. And those are valued at, approximately $290 million. We could substitute, basically elevate the properties identified for acquisition instead of acquiring them. It's important to note that only 225 of the 286 structures that are currently recommended for acquisition also have a positive BCR for elevation. So there'd be about 40 that just sort of, couldn't be elevated and, would not have some sort of recommendation for those. But, the majority of them could just be elevated instead. And then, it's also possible, I guess, depending on each of the municipalities, may have different preferences, or maybe some of the municipalities that have, far fewer or, more, depending on each municipality's preference, it could be even that maybe, there's acquisition in some or not in others, elevation set in others, something. So there, basically the point is we can, create a plan that is acceptable to everyone, as long as it's economically justified and kind of meets our criteria. But so just kind of wanted to throw that out there. Again, this is just sort of an option, but as of now, the county, really they would like to keep acquisition on the table, especially if they can make it voluntary to reduce risk the best they can in the Keys. So moving forward, like I said, with that tentatively selected plan still. So moving forward, I will be doing these kind of briefings for each of the city councils basically over this week and next week. The Monroe Board of County Commissioners meeting is on June 17th, and that's when Susan Layton, our planning chief, will be briefing the county commissioners basically to kind of just make sure we get the green light to release that draft report. But when she was there in May, the commissioners had asked us, well, what did the municipalities think about this plan? And, we're kind of here to make sure that we can tell them that, and when we go back in June, it is June next week. So we're going to continue that county waiver request, through our agency and up to the Assistant Secretary of the Army. But right now we do have a draft report, scheduled for release on June 26th. We're putting the finishing touches on that now. And so once it would be released on the 26th, that would be for a 45-day public review. And also it has, various technical reviews in our agency. And also we have an external expert review that our agency coordinates as well. So basically it goes, out for a bunch of reviews once it's released. And part of that 45-day public review is we will be holding virtual meetings and sort of office hours where people can ask questions and learn about the project from the public. Previously, like back in September 2019, when we were kind of coming up with that TSP milestone, we would normally have these meetings in public meetings. But obviously under the current situation, we're just gonna be doing them virtually. But we've been talking to a lot of our other offices and they've had good success with doing them virtually. So we'll have opportunity for people to still learn about the project and make comments. And then this is sort of just a table version of that first schedule slide. It pretty much just covers what I just discussed about the public review and releasing the report. And a little farther out to the study will be wrapping up in September of 2021. With that Chief of Engineers report basically is the document that says what the plan is that we're recommending to Congress to authorize for construction. Because again, the whole point of the study is to not just study things, but to recommend something that could ultimately be implemented or constructed in the Keys. So that is all that I had for my briefing, but I'm happy to answer questions. And I guess I failed to ask, I didn't see Rhonda on the Zoom, but I'm just curious, Rhonda, did Rhonda join at some point?
Yeah.
Oh, hey,
yeah,
Rhonda.
Rhonda's here.
Good. Okay, great. So, and Rhonda, I don't know if you wanted to, say anything too right now.
Sure. So you went over the plan. I want everybody to get caught up to speed on what the plan was. The real question here is regarding the acquisition. The county absolutely does not want mandatory acquisitions. However, we did put in a formal request for a waiver. And I know it's being considered, and you of course can confirm that, but like you said, it's going to be October until we know. So the question is, do we want to take that chance and wait until October? Then if October we still don't know, or if it's turned down, then at that time we could switch them over to elevations. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So so it might seem easy to just switch them over now, but what we're trying to do is, Monroe County has a chance here to kind of help the country move forward. There's no local municipality that's going to want mandatory acquisition. So we're kind of in the forefront here. We've submitted our formal request. I'm hoping we stand at least a fair chance of consideration. And if and when we do get that waiver, we would help the rest of the country going through these 3-year studies, perhaps help with their waivers, because it just doesn't fit a local community resilience program. It's good for Everglades having the mandatory acquisition. It's perfect there, but for us, the voluntary acquisitions is what we need, and I'm hopeful that we at least will have our waiver considered. And if we do take it out now, I think the Corps will just not consider it further. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's true, Rhonda. If the county decides to go with a locally preferred plan, then, you know, I'd have to check, but I would think that, yeah, they would just, oh, well, they're going with locally preferred plan, and yeah, probably, would, yeah, not that, you know, it would sort of, I guess they would consider that, you know, kind of no longer necessary, since the, you know, local preferred plan would not include acquisition.
So I'll be quiet now, but that's kind of where we're at as far as Monroe County.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Martis,
Thank you.
you are recognized.
Thank you, Steve. I'm going through this. First off, Ms. Haug, I want to say thank you very much. It's nice to see a government agency be proactive on things as opposed to reactive. I think you've given local communities down here a lot of good things to think about. That being said, I'm with the county and their position on really not supporting the mandatory acquisition. I was just doing some math on some of these figures, and under the acquisition of 286 structures for a total cost of $290.5 million, that is over $1 million per house. I know we have high property values, but are we thinking that we're going to do that many, we're going to get rid of that many $1 million homes? Or are these the costs involved as well?
So, right, that's a great question. You're correct, it is about $1 million per home. And the reason for that is it's not just the value of acquiring the land and the home, it's also, there is about $200-something thousand worth of appraisals and possible, you know, litigation fees, and having a contractor come in and, you know, handle all the paperwork and doing all the surveys. So it's, yeah, there's a sort of cost that's associated with acquisition that is not just, you know, buying the property.
And the other thing I noticed too, the math on the same thing on the elevation of homes. If we're looking at 7,124 structures at a $1.94 billion price tag, that comes to $27,268 per home elevated on average. And that seems to be a much more feasible, reasonable number than
273,000, yeah, per structure.
Yeah. 27,000. Yeah, but it's anyway, it's a big difference. Again, I appreciate the forethought, but the rest of my fellow council members will weigh on this, but I can't at this point for the city marathon support the mandatory acquisition element either.
Thank you, Councilman. Anyone else?
Mayor.
Councilman San Martin.
Hey, thank you. So I am actually of exactly the same train of thought. And when you do the math, I'm sorry, I'm a business guy. You know, I can figure out which of these houses, for the most part, you're talking about. And I think you can double the price of the market value on the house and buy them before you could get close to that $1 million. There'd be, you know, there's a lot of money there. With that said, you know, that's government math, and it is what it is. I've learned that. But with all that said, I do agree with the county's point of view on this. I would not be interested in any kind of acquisition of anybody's property. The elevation idea, I think, is great if there's money for it somewhere. But again, you're almost to the point where you could demo a house and rebuild it, elevated at that price for what you're talking about, even just to elevate them. So anyway, yeah, I in this particular case, I do agree with the county's plan on this, and I think we should be along the same lines.
Thank you, Councilman San Martin. Anybody else?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Vice Mayor, you
Yes,
recognized.
I guess since we're talking about it, and we're looking for consensus amongst all the members, I just can't support anything that's a mandatory buyout. I'll have to stick with the county on this, and if it's anything more than a voluntary buyout, can't be in favor of it.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Anyone else? Doc Z? Would you care to weigh in?
Yes, I thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I have several objections to it. I will not bother everyone with repeating, but mandatory is a word that I just don't care for, and eminent domain are two words that I don't care for at all. I think voluntary certainly could be a consideration with the benefit to cost ratio favoring the elevation of some of the ones that the federal government wants to seize. That makes much more sense, elevation to me. But the bottom line is we can toss around 100 or million or whatever else. We have to come up with about $1.3 billion. We are a county of 70,000 people. Now do that math of how much it would end up costing us over the course of this harebrained program. No, I am very much opposed to this on the two standpoints, mainly of mandatory is not something that I think we should put upon our citizens, and two, the cost is exorbitant and it cannot be borne by the residents of this county. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Z. I would add nothing further, really. It's really been said. And I think that you get where we are. We're kind of sidestep or in lockstep rather with the county as far as not wanting any mandatory acquisitions at this time. So I guess we're in for a locally preferred plan, as it were. I feel like I'm buying insurance. But I do thank you so much. I'm sorry.
This is Rhonda. May I interrupt for a question?
Yes, Ms. Howard.
Thank you. So what I would like to know is, we know we don't want mandatory acquisitions. Do we want to wait until October to see if the acquisition waiver will be granted, or would you prefer not to even wait that long and just remove the acquisitions right now?
Mr. Mayor?
I would actually like to, I'm sorry, Mr. Martis. I was gonna offer up that our city manager would probably like to weigh in on this as well.
Hey, good evening. I just really had two questions for the Army Corps, or three. One, has a waiver ever been approved for this?
You know, I don't think there has been a waiver request for this yet. So the policy is relatively new. It's only, I think, maybe like a couple two years old. So, you know, I think if I mean, Ashton, I don't know if you can, I'm not aware of one that's been made before. I think if there was one, we would have known about it because I think there'd be some sort of precedent. But so as far as I'm aware, you know, I think Monroe County preferred. But just, Paul, I guess, Rhonda, I agree with Rhonda's question. You know, I think everyone's on the same page that the mandatory acquisition is not acceptable. But I am curious to, you know, what the thoughts are on, you know, if it was voluntary and people could, you know, choose that.
Councilman Bartis. I think.
Mr. Mayor, just a comment too about this is we're talking, you know, I guess in the federal government, this isn't a whole lot of big numbers, but for down here, they certainly are. And how, you know, we're going to be competing against a lot of other programs for this money too, under, you know, the Army Corps budget and everything else that goes on up in Washington. I mean, what is the likelihood of that federal match actually showing up down here?
That's a good question. So I'm gonna tell you right now, I would be completely flabbergasted if, you know, we got every single dollar for the implementation of this, you know, up front. I mean, that doesn't happen for any project. They're not going to just dole out, you know, even billions of dollars. But, you know, the normal path forward on this is basically a plan is recommended from the study. It gets sent to Congress, gets authorized into law. It's there on the books. And then basically, usually, you know, pretty much as soon as it gets authorized, you know, we'll move out with some federal funding. You know, we might get 40, 50 million, federal funds. And then the county at that time would just have to match, the 35% of that. And so basically it would sort of we would just keep getting funds, at whatever intervals, they're available, into the future. So, I don't want to even try to say, that this project would just be built, in like a year. It would be definitely, it's a lot of structures, it's thousands. But, I think it's a supplemental study, as emergency appropriation. I think if their project gets authorized, out of the study, that it's, I would be just as surprised if it did not get any, funding to move forward into the pre-construction engineering and kind of get some stuff going. We'd have to probably think about how it would be phased, in the construction, like, do we do it geographically? Do you just do highest, there'd be some way we'd have to figure out what, how to prioritize, what gets done first. But, I think if it gets authorized, then certainly, there'd be some federal funds. I can't say how much, exactly and exactly when, but yeah.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
It's really quick. I just want to make sure that I didn't cut off Ms. Burton because it looked like she was wanting to speak with Ms. Hogg. Is that correct?
Yeah, if that's okay, if I could jump in for just a second.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you, Ms. Bergen. Go ahead.
Okay. So just wanted to add one thing back about the acquisitions, just so everyone is aware. We're definitely getting, clear feedback about the mandatory aspect of the acquisitions. But just wanted to add that our high cost of about $1 million per structure is because it also includes quite a bit of relocation assistance, which we are required to provide when we use eminent domain to acquire someone's home. And then wanted to add to what Rachel was saying about construction funds. This study was funded under a supplemental bill, emergency supplemental bill is what we call it. And while we would not receive all of the funds up front to implement the project all at one time, we would work with the sponsor, Monroe County, and the municipalities to develop an implementation plan. And I would definitely be surprised if this project did not receive construction funds, because one thing that Congress, I believe, will be looking at when they're judging the projects against each other is how vulnerable the keys are. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Back to Councilman San Martin.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Ms. Hogue, well, I guess my question here is, let's just, for the sake of argument, say that all of this was to move forward in the acquisitions. And I know you said earlier that you would try to protect the addresses of the maps and the property locations. At what point do you start to notify people, and do you notify them all at once? Because once that cat is out of the bag, property values right there are gonna really start to take a hit. So at what point do we go from this being hopefully protected type information to pretty much having to say, knock, knock, excuse me, but, we're taking your house?
That's a good question. And we're still talking to our attorneys about exactly at what point that information, is actually just we notify people. And, during the study phase, I can't be quite sure. I think, definitely once we got to the implementation phase and once a project became authorized and included acquisition, then, certainly once we had to start, preparing to actually acquire some homes that, then we'd be notifying people. To be honest, I can, I guess we have our attorneys getting on it right now, and they've been talking about it. So, I'm happy to follow up on that when we get a better answer.
Thank you. So many questions coming at me right now offline. Let's see. All right. Is there anyone of the council members wanting to go forward and propose a motion for this at all? As far as we're concerned, as a recommendation, I guess, to the county? Or is that proper, Mr. Smits?
Well, I was going to ask what Ms. Howe needs from us. I mean, I think it's very clear the position of the council. So does she want that vote from us? Does she want that representation? And does she want us to draft our request for our own waiver as done by the county? Is that her expectation from tonight?
So those are good questions. So, I mean, again, the non-federal sponsor of the study, you know, and especially in terms of the government, in terms of cost sharing agreements and things, you know, is Monroe County. So, you know, the waiver that they have, the request for the waiver they've put in, you know, it's for the whole study. You know, I understand that they're, you know, the municipalities are their own separate entities, you know, in terms of government, but I guess the way, you know, we're looking at it, it's sort of, you know, all the Florida Keys and Monroe's our sponsor. And so their waiver, I guess, it covers, you know, if that was to get granted, it's for the whole study. So, you know, any home in the Florida Keys, you know, if we got this waiver approved, would, you know, it could be voluntary acquisition. So no, I don't think there's a separate waiver request needed, certainly not. And, you know, again, I guess mostly too, in terms of moving forward and cost sharing and things, you know, the municipalities and the county are going to have to coordinate amongst themselves, you know, in terms of how the cost sharing would work in between the county and the municipalities. Because, you know, when we have a cost sharing agreement, if there's to move forward for construction, you know, that would be just between the government and the county. I guess what I'm saying is what we really just, you know, we're hoping for right now is to understand how you know, with the state council, if they had feedback, basically the Monroe commissioners, you know, county commissioners were asking us what each municipality thought in terms of the plan, you know, I guess to inform that they don't want to decide something that goes against the wishes of the municipalities. So we're basically kind of here just to gauge what your support for, you know, the plan is. And then Rhonda, please, you know, jump in as well.
Yeah, this is Rhonda. So there's basically two questions. Number one, do you want to move forward with the plan at all? Yes or no? And number two, regarding acquisitions, do you want to wait until October to see if we get the waiver approved, or do you want to remove acquisitions right now? If we wait until October and it's not approved, we can at that time, from my understanding, switch them over to elevation.
Yes.
The whole reason it came up was because of the Freedom of Information Act request. We didn't want a Freedom of Information Act request potentially granted and then the list of addresses to be out there. But from my understanding, and the court can also acknowledge this, regardless of whether the acquisitions are mandatory or voluntary, there's some chance out there that that list might become public. Even if you switch them over to elevations now, there's still that small chance that that list could become public.
Yes, Rhonda, that's correct. So, right, even if there was an LPP, locally preferred plan selected that only included elevation, let's say, in our reports, we're still required by core policy to identify what that sort of government plan is or what the tentatively selected plan is right now. So, you know, again, there would be no address or anything in the report, but there would still be some language in the final report that would say, you know, this is what the government plan was. However, you know, the county is moving forward with a locally preferred plan that only, you know, includes, so there would still be some reference to, you know, the fact that there was a plan considered that included acquisition, you know, but it would also be made clear that if an LPP is a locally preferred plan is selected, that is what's being recommended for construction and, you know, moving forward.
All right, thank you, Rachel. I'm going to ask Chuck Lindsay to speak. He's been, he didn't get to finish. We kind of went afield. Chuck, are you there?
Yeah. Hey, Rachel, I wanted to kind of follow up. So this study, this process, this was all started by a request from the county, correct?
No.
I'm sorry, Rhonda.
So the county didn't request the study. Oh, the presentation tonight, yes.
Okay, and the county doesn't support mandatory acquisition, so I'm just curious why it's still in the presentation. So my question would be, can this go forward without mandatory acquisitions in it, or do we have to request, or does it move forward and we have to request the waiver? Because I think it's really, really clear by our council that we don't support mandatory acquisitions. So I guess for point of clarity, can the project go forward without mandatory acquisitions, or does it have to go forward the way it is with a waiver request?
So that's a good question. Yeah, so to clarify, right now, the way our draft report is written is it identifies that tentatively selected plan, which includes acquisition. And right now, because do not have decision on that waiver request, they are technically mandatory. However, in the report, we have specific language that says at various places, Monroe County does not support mandatory acquisition. There is a waiver, in process, and basically this is a tentatively selected plan, and ultimately they would never support something at the end of all of this that would include mandatory acquisition. So technically the plan right now, the acquisition in there is mandatory, but again, this is the tentatively selected plan in the draft report, and we're acknowledging that if we don't get a decision on that waiver, or if we do get a decision and it's denied and that mandatory policy stands, that's when likely then the county would just be moving with a locally preferred plan. So right now what Rhonda's trying to say is there's basically what's being released in the draft report. If we go with that tentatively selected plan that includes acquisition right now, there's absolutely nothing requiring that to be the plan that's ultimately recommended once the study wraps up in another year and a half, or next September 2025.
Okay, and I apologize. I'm a simple guy. Guy. So can the project go forward? Can we remove mandatory acquisitions now and continue down the process, or do they have to remain in?
Yeah, so we can go with that locally preferred plan that does not include acquisition, and that could be what we move forward with.
Oh, thank you very much. May I ask Rhonda? Rhonda, can we clarify for the county one more time? Would you be in favor as well, or would you be okay if we just, if we voted to pull out and go with the locally preferred plan of non-mandatory acquisitions? Is that kind of where the county's at?
Sorry, I just want to clarify. So if we went with a locally preferred plan right now.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude. I was actually asking Rhonda from the county, right?
So thank you. The question was, can you move forward with voluntary acquisitions? If we pull out now, the acquisitions, and we pull out now, we would automatically transfer what we could over to elevation. The other option, that would happen, but that can happen right now, and yes, we can do that. The other option is to wait the 4 months to see if the waiver is granted.
So I guess what I was asking you, Rhonda, was where are you sitting? Where's the county sit on this officially?
So we didn't vote on it at the commission level. They wanted the input from the cities. I believe the commission is willing to do either option, but they wanted the feedback from municipalities first.
All right, thank you. I'm sorry, Ms. Rachel, I didn't mean to cut you off. I didn't want to be rude. You may please.
Okay, I was just trying to clarify that, what Rhonda said that right now we can't go with voluntary acquisitions unless we had that waiver, but Rhonda explained that well.
All right, council, anything to say?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Burtis.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to recommend to the county that we definitely support the waiver request for mandatory acquisitions, that we do not want the mandatory acquisitions. Should the waiver request not be granted, then we would recommend to them that we would choose a locally preferred plan.
Second.
Who is the second?
Zig.
All right. Do we need a vote on this? Or I don't even know how you do a head nod this way. I mean, we've got this computer screen up. I can't see anybody's faces. Rachel, would you be able to?
The county's looking for direction, so you're providing them direction.
Thank you, Rachel. Or Ashton, I'm not sure who did that. Thank you. The county is looking for direction, says our lawyer. So shall we vote on it?
Sure,
Diane?
absolutely. Vote on it.
Ms. Diane.
Got a motion and a second.
Councilmember Bartis,
Yes.
Councilmember Zig,
Yes.
Councilmember San Martin,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gonzalez,
Yes.
Mayor Cook,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you so much, ladies. Ms. Bergen, Ms. Hogg, thank you so much for your presentations.
Thank you. For having us. And I guess I'm just gonna go ahead and drop off. Thank you again for letting us present on the project.
Thanks. Sorry for the long discussion, but it's been very informative. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Bye-bye. All righty. And now, I guess it's 6 Delta application for attorney, Mr. Smits. How did we do in this last month?
Let's see. We've received 3 submittals that had everything requested to be in the submittals. Diana called through quite a few applications that were non-responsive, and she did follow up with each of those applicants and asked them to include the materials that were not included in the initial submission. The resultant product is we are now, the advertising period is closed. It's been advertised since pretty much the day after the last meeting we had. And the result is that she has 3 complete packages, which are available for any city council member to review by giving her a ring, and she'll make the materials available.
Okay. So at this point, I would just request that Diane send packets to all 5 of us, council, for review. Unless that's not something you want to put on in a Dropbox. Is that not
Doesn't
preferred,
bother me.
Mr. Smith?
I
Sorry?
don't have a preference either way. Anybody can, it's public record, so.
Well, I just didn't know how many people were getting out and about. Maybe people are getting out more than I am. I don't know.
Mayor?
Yes, I guess that was Councilman San Martin.
Yes. Can I ask how many other applications were there that were deemed incomplete?
I don't know off the top of my head, but they were, each and every one of them were followed up with and asked to provide the additional materials. So, they didn't. So anyone that didn't complete the package is more or less non-responsive. But there's a list of the people that applied that didn't have their packages complete.
I'd like to get that too, if possible.
Sure.
Thank you.
I don't know if it's a list. It's more like a bunch of emails, but I'm sure Diana can put that together.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So I guess failing that, I don't necessarily need to see the people that got weeded out. I would just soon see the people that passed muster for myself. I don't know about the others. But if you could supply that to Mr. San Martin, that would be awesome. Thank you, sir. And ma'am. I guess we are now at item 7, 4th of July, city manager report. Or at least city manager report first, and then however you want to do it, buddy.
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. Really fast, before we get into the 4th of July discussion, I did want to clarify. I know the county is looking for this information fairly quickly, so with your permission, I would like to draft a letter for the mayor's signature to provide the county commissioners this week so they can go into their meetings on the 17th prepared. Are you okay with that?
Oh, absolutely. That's why we took a vote, I thought.
We did, but I just want to make sure that it's clear. I'd like to provide the commission something for
sure.
sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, then
let's get it out tomorrow. Let's make sure they have it tomorrow.
So moving on, I wanted to take the opportunity to, while we have this public forum to kind of discuss the 4th of July. I mean, I think it's no secret we're living in a little bit of a different world right now with the COVID. To be safe, whenever we make these decisions during crises, we try to do so with the best information that we have at the moment. And we try not to speculate. About a month ago, the cards were pointing towards uncertainty about whether or not to have the 4th of July celebration. However, we went ahead and asked Mr. Mearns to move forward with purchasing the fireworks and start working on permitting, simply because we don't like to make determinations based on any form of uncertainty, although it still exists. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to open the floor and just really ask for everybody's input on this. It's a very complex issue to an interesting situation. We want to make sure that we keep our residents safe, but we also want to make sure that everything we do is accurately measured and our responses are appropriate to the current time. So I was looking for some good discussion on it, how we have it, and we can move forward following this meeting.
Questions, comments? Nobody on the council has a comment or question?
Yes, I do.
Vice Mayor, you're recognized.
Yeah, thank you. Chuck, I mean, I've talked to you about this at length also. I think it all boils down to that wherever we go, we have to take personal responsibility for our actions. And that's what we have to hold citizens accountable. And there's rules that need to be followed. We've talked about, the spike. We haven't seen that spike. I think my opinion on it is that we need to move forward with the celebration as it's always been. And, I'd just like to hear what everybody else has to say. But I think, we can't put this off for a couple of weeks and say, oh, now we're going to do it. There's planning to these kind of events. And I think we need a plan to happen.
Mr. Mayor.
I understand.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, who is that?
Zig,
Oh, yes, Councilman Zig, go.
I agree with Louis Gonzalez very much. I think that it's easier for us to go ahead, as discussed today with the city manager. It's much easier to go ahead and plan and put all the preparations in place. But as we accumulate more data over the next couple of weeks, it'd be very easy for us to cancel it if the numbers or if our feelings were to be reflected in that direction. My personal feeling is that we don't have enough information right now to make a solid decision, but it's much easier to go ahead and plan to have the event and then, if need be, cancel at the last minute. I honestly think that what we've seen as an influx of people from Miami-Dade County in the past few days since the checkpoint came down, and thank you again, MCSO, for your efforts there, that we've seen that the people from Miami-Dade County have little respect for masks and no respect for social distancing. So I agree with Louis Gonzalez. Let's go ahead and plan to do it. But if need be, pull the plug at the last minute. We can always have the fireworks with the beach closed.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Councilman San Martin,
Sure.
Councilman Bardis, Councilman San Martin.
Thank you. I actually do agree. I think we should move forward with it, barring any large jump in cases here locally. I think it can always be, shut down by July 1st if so need, if the need's there. I haven't heard from the fire chief. I am curious as to his opinion. I do find it a little ironic that, we can't have a meeting in the same building together right now. But you guys are asking us if we want to have a beach party with a gazillion people at it.
Well, thank you, Councilman. To be fair, let's remember that the fireworks display will not be in the City Hall. Anyone else?
Sure.
Councilman Bardis.
I'd be interested in hearing what Chief Johnson has to say as well. But as far as these events go, beaches are open, and our Sombrero Beach has had a decent number of visitors every day over the last several weeks it's been open. We will get a much better idea of what kind of a case count, if there is going to be a spike in that case count, 3 weeks after that opening. So before July 4th, we'll have a really good idea. But at this point, I think we need to go ahead, prepare for us having a July 4th. Prepare to celebrate our independence. And I just want to say a personal note of thanks to Randy Mearns for everything he does every year for these fireworks. They are awesome. They are amazing. We have the best small town fireworks display in the United States, and I certainly want to keep this going. So I would love to see us have a 4th of July on the beach.
Thank you. Chief Johnson, do you want to weigh in on this?
Absolutely. Good evening, everybody. I agree with Doc and all the council members that we just don't have enough data at this time, but we should move forward with this celebration. As Doc was saying, we still can shoot the fireworks. If it comes, we have a large spike and we close the beach on the 4th, we can still have a great display. People can watch it from their boats, from their houses, from different areas. It is such a great display and visible from a lot of areas of Marathon. But I think we do move forward. We check the data, we keep up with the data, and we also keep, and I know our Parks Director, Paul's been doing really well with keeping track of the beach and the social distancing. We got people going out there. And as long as we can manage it in the state that we'll be in 3 weeks, I say we go forward. And like you said, we can always pull the plug, but we can't gear back up a week before.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, I just want to apologize to Mr. St. Martin. I wasn't trying to be snarky. Well, I was being snarky, but I don't mean it personally or anything. I was just trying to be funny. I would like to say, though, that remember, just as far as data goes, this last weekend, while we had a few offenders that possibly our sheriff's captain and our sheriff himself, thank you so much for all the work you guys did for a couple months, and you do every night and every day. But I maybe they concur. Miami bars were closed over the weekend, so people were flooding to us and probably rebelling a bunch. I think hopefully, like the restaurants, things will temper themselves and people will get back to acting a little bit more wisely. And I agree that we need to plan diligently for a great 4th of July celebration for our independence, especially now for our independence. And after that lockdown, people are going to need this, I think. So if we can figure ways to tailor it based on data, I think that's a great thing. Do we want to hear from Mr. Mearns? Or, sorry, who was that?
It was John Bardis.
John, yes.
Just one other quick
Please,
thing.
go ahead.
I'm also part of the Rotary Clubs committee that works on July 4th. And they are aware that anybody that does any cooking or anything like that will be required to wear a mask as per CDC guidelines. That's it.
Thank you. Did we want to hear from Mr. Mearns, or would the city manager want to hear from Mr. Mearns on this, or?
I actually wanted to thank, former Mayor Randy Mearns for being on the call. If he wants to weigh in, he's more than welcome to, but I wanted to thank him. And I also wanted to thank the sheriff as well, who's on the call, and would appreciate any feedback from him or Captain Heller if they have anything specific that they would like to add.
Oh, very good. Very good. Gentlemen.
Can you guys hear me?
I think, Randy Mearns.
You do.
Go ahead,
Can
Mr.
you hear me?
Mearns.
Okay, I'm new at this, so I think everything that you guys have said is absolutely pertinent. I do want to tell you that the company that I work for shoots a huge amount of shows in South Florida and the Caribbean. 60% of their shows have been canceled. The remaining shows have been changed to larger shells, and they're encouraging people to not go to the site but watching from other venues. So, with that being said, I think that your responses are good. I think we're going to get a little bit of influx from our neighboring keys and even the mainland, but there are plenty of other places you can see the fireworks from if we need to do that. You can go by boat. We can manage the beach. You can sit on your car on the edge of the road. If you go around Sombrero Boulevard, the south side is not fenced, and you can park your car there and throw out a blanket or some chairs and watch it from there. The show is done on the radio, so people can access the music from anywhere they might be. So I think the plan that's in place is perfect. We have to watch it and see what happens. We're moving forward, and I'm just hoping that we can pull this off and have a really, really great show for 2020.
Thank you, Randy. And I just want to weigh in and say that, you know, every show I've ever had to work from the water or was allowed to work from as Rotary was amazing. And I have lived in much bigger cities with not quite as good as shows.
Okay.
So bravo, sir.
Thank
you. Anyone else? All right. So we're moving forward with the fireworks, and we will, as data reveals, we will amend and or roll on with the show, correct? Anyone? Very well.
That works out perfectly for us, sir. We can, if we see a dramatic spike in the pandemic, we can call a special call. I'll call a special call.
All right, thank you so much. I think that's great.
Mr. Mayor, I had a question for City Manager too.
Mr. St. Martin, please.
Chuck, are we doing, well, the playground now at the beach is open. Are we doing any kind of, sanitizing of the playground equipment, and will we be stepping that up around the 4th of July celebration?
We are. I'm gonna defer to Mr. Davis for this. He should be on the call. But first, I will also wanted to tell you guys that there also is a device that we've procured. We procured it a couple months ago because we knew there was going to be a long lead time for it. It's not here yet, but it's actually like a fogging style device that deionizes the virus. It's a non-chemical. It's a non-toxic. That's not here yet. Once we have that, it's easy. We can do it all the time. I'm going to give it over to Paul though, and he can kind of give you an update on our sanitizing processes and what we got going on.
Good evening, everyone. Yeah, we started with the beach playground equipment. We opened that up on this past Monday, and yesterday we went through and did a good rub down. And from this point forward, we've been going at least 3 or 4 times a day, at least twice in the morning, at least 2 or 3 times in the afternoon to make sure we're wiping down the playground equipment. We're still doing the bathrooms. Now that we have the pavilions open, we even wipe down the tables as much as we can if there's nobody occupying those tables. But we definitely keep an eye on the playground equipment because that's one of those areas that's, you get a lot of traffic from the kids. So now with the weekend coming up, we're gonna have a couple of staff going in over the weekend and continuing to do the same thing as far as disinfecting the equipment in the restrooms and also picking up some trash because we've had a few areas that was, the visitors left trash in the on the beach area, but we cleaned it up yesterday morning. So, but yeah, we got a couple more staff, like I said, on the weekend and during the week, we just picking it up a little bit more, making sure making sure everything is clean and disinfected.
Okay, so 4th of July day, you guys planning on having people going through like restrooms and gates?
Yes, sir. We're gonna continue to do the same thing. Just like once again, we're just gonna keep it, just keep it like probably every half an hour best that we can because we know it's gonna be very busy that day. So yes.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough. All right, thank you.
Yep.
All right, if there's nothing further on the 4th of July discussion, I'd like to move on to item Bravo. Are you okay with that, sir?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead. Proceed.
I added this, the heavy equipment discussion. Basically, today, Mr. Solis had notified me that the county has kind of a surplus program that they're currently working on, and we would have the opportunity to potentially get some heavy equipment from the county. The value of that equipment is obviously over a certain threshold. So just to be safe, I'd like, I was going to ask head nods from everybody if it's okay that we go ahead and work on receiving some equipment from the county as far as, their surplus goes.
Whatever, let's give some new toys to Carlos.
It would definitely equate to a huge cost savings. There would be some costs to repair and maybe beef up the equipment. But when you start talking about equipment in the $40,000, $50,000 range, a $10,000 repair is better than buying a new piece of equipment.
Are we talking about like backhoes and things?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good to me.
All levity aside, sounds good to me too.
Thank you, Council. Mr. City Manager, I was just curious. We had originally spoken that possibly the MCSO would want to weigh in on the fireworks, and we kind of got ahead. I thought, did we miss that, or did they not want to speak? Do you know?
It's up to them. It's up to Don.
Okay,
Yeah, Chuck, we'll go along with we got a good plan already in place for the beach, and DB's here, and yeah, we'll handle whatever we can. Sheriff is committed to helping out with some trustees on some load in and clean up afterwards too. So we'll go forward as planned.
I appreciate that, Don. And we'll, you know, if we start seeing stuff where we may start considering a change, we'll bring you in really early on that, okay?
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
sorry for that, Chuck. Please go ahead.
No, sir. So if everyone's okay, we'll proceed with the heavy equipment surplus. And then item Charlie, I really just wanted to take advantage of the opportunity. We were able to get our new building official, Mr. Noe Martinez, on the line. Noe is from Miami. However, he's worked for many years with MT Cosley. As you know, MT Cosley is a firm that's been supporting us for many years here in the Keys. He also works for Florida City. He's got an extensive experience in the building official world, and I wanted to introduce him and give him a few minutes to just kind of tell us a little bit about himself.
Mr. Martinez, you are on, sir.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, my name is Noe Martinez, N-O-E Martinez. And like Chuck said, I'm from Miami, now living in West Palm Beach. And love to work here. I mean, I find Marathon to be a huge challenge, and I'm pretty much willing to give it a go and try to, I would just say, make things a little bit more, not easier, but compliant with everything that is required of us by the state, and so forth and so on. I've been a building official in Medley when I still had hair, and that was back in 1979. And then from there, I got tired of it and went to for the private sector. And then I went to Homestead to help out after Andrew. And in '96, I was called to the city of Aventura to be, make up the building department and run it. So I had to provide every single thing that a building department needs. And I was there for a little bit better than 10 years. And decided to go to the private sector again because it was a little better for my family and myself and all of that. But after that, I started working for Mike Cosley, which you all know. And right now, well, since I started, I was a project manager for some of the jobs that are going on in Miami Beach that was very disorganized. And brought it to, organized the whole thing, and then became the vice president of field operations, in charge of all inspections, plans review, everything, engineers, the whole works. So, but my specialty is, I'm actually a building official also on the private side, which is MT Cosley. So I run that like if it was a building department. We have to, because we do plans review, we do everything that is done in the building department, we do it. And we actually get a lot of contracts because we do it more efficient than the actual building departments in Dade County. And that's kind of hard to say, but it's the truth. So we can get things done a little bit quicker than the county or city of Miami or any other city that does a plans review. Why it takes them such a long time, I have no idea. when I was a building official in Aventura, things didn't take that long. So, I mean, and Aventura is mainly comprised of high rises. So it's a little more time consuming and delicate plan review than a single family is. Not putting down, not knocking the single family residents, but high rises are a breed of their own. So if you guys have any questions, I'm sorry. If you all have any questions.
Council, do you guys have any questions for Mr. Martinez?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Louis, Vice Mayor, you're recognized.
First of all, Noe, I want to thank you for what you're doing here. And from what I'm hearing in front of you, it seems like you're wanting to commit to it. So I guess I got to defer this question over to Chuck. Chuck, are there plans in the future moving forward that house building official that worked for us on a continual, a 5-day-a-week basis that's readily available to our contractors and our citizens? Because it seems like from what I'm hearing Mr. Noe Martinez talk about some of the issues that he's encountered, he might be able to get us over the hump. We're having some issues, and it seems like he might be that guy. So I'm just putting it out there. Do we have plans in the works for this coming in-house?
Councilman, absolutely. I mean, our goal all along has been to get this position in-house. Right now, Noe is working for MT Cosley and working for us, but you're absolutely correct. He is he's actually doing an outstanding job, and he would be a great candidate. That's a conversation that I would have to have with Mr. with Noe outside of this public meeting. But I would say absolutely that position needs to be in-house. Our goal is to bring it in-house, but it needs to go to the right person, and it needs to be it needs to be filled with the person that's best for Marathon. And I heard what Mr. Noe, or I heard what Mr. Martinez said, and I heard it the same way you did. So yes, I will be talking to him here very shortly.
Well, thank you very much, and Noe, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, and thank you, Noe. Anyone else have any questions or comments for Mr. Martinez?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Bartis, you are
Thank you.
recognized, sir.
Thank you. I just want to say again, welcome to Mr. Martinez. And if we can beat the city of Miami, we can beat Miami-Dade County. Let's beat the city of Marathon. Let's do it. Thank you very much. Welcome aboard.
Well,
Thank you,
if
Councilman.
if I may expand a little bit, I know you all are pressed for time and all that. I have a few plans in mind and that I'm putting into work right now, which the city manager is totally aware of. And so is Commissioner Bartens. And I'm planning to get some groups of people from the city, builders, what have you, together and tell them what to expect and what I'm expecting and get that line of communication going. And I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe that's worked in the past for me. And I don't see why it shouldn't work now. So I really understand and believe in meeting with people, meeting with the contractors, meeting with the homeowners, or meeting with developers, and so that everybody can be in the same page. So I'm all about that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any of the other councilmen?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. San Martin, you are recognized, sir.
Thank you. Noe, same as the other guys, welcome. I haven't had a chance to meet you yet. I would love the chance to sit down and talk with you a little bit. I know you've got a pretty busy day. You guys are doing inspections all day long, but you've got my number there at the city. Give me a call anytime and let me know when you've got a free minute. I'd like to sit down and pick your brain a little bit.
You should show up, sir, and I don't need appointments.
Okay. Well, I know, but you're always out on the street working, so.
No, most of the time I'm here.
Well, you know
but-
where my store is next to Frank's, but you can feel free to stop by anytime. I'm stuck here all day by myself, so.
I'm stuck in here all day by myself. So.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
I guess, Doc Zig, do you have any questions or any comments for Mr. Martinez?
I don't have any questions for Noe, but it was a pleasure getting to meet you today and chat with you a little bit. And I really do like your shirt after all.
I was going to say something about that, but I'm glad you did. So thank you.
Welcome
Noe.
aboard.
Thank you.
No, it's probably the most I've heard you speak since we have met. Usually it's kind of a very gracious, hey, how you doing? We're doing great passing in the hall and through masks and whatnot. But I want to say that one of the things I remember the most is that a lot of the contractors, though it's a very tight-knit group of folks here in this city, I would like to say that everybody always is striving for fair and impartial. That's all they ever really, when it seems to get down to the deepest part, they really want fair and impartial judging. And, you know, as a building official, I think you are that bill, and you, not that any of the others haven't been, but, you know, you are the textbook of fair and impartial. And I want to thank you for your work since you've been on the job for months now, kind of working in a duress situation with the COVID. And I appreciate you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Mr.
Yes, sir. So that,
City Manager.
that concludes,
That's where you are.
that concludes the city manager report. I do want to say thank you again to Randy Mearns, Mr. Mayor, for being here. And wanted to thank the sheriff and especially his crew here in Marathon who've been really flexible through all this. I know that all of us at City Hall are very grateful and very thankful for all those guys and their hard work out in the sun on the checkpoint throughout the last couple months. So just want to tell everybody thank you, and that concludes our report.
Thank you, sir. I guess at that time, we don't have comments or city stuff. So we are at 8 Alpha, ordinance 2019-12. Diane, please.
Amending the city's comprehensive plan to modify comprehensive plan, chapter 1, future element, goal 1-3, manage growth, objective 1-3.2, regulate density and intensity, policy 1-3.25. 2.5, maximum height limitation, increasing the maximum building height to 42 feet to provide compensation for increases in required elevations for the new FEMA firm maps, providing for severability, providing for the repeal of conflicting provisions, providing for the transmittal of this ordinance to the State Department of Economic Opportunity after final adoption by the City Council, and providing for an effective date.
Good evening, council. This is George Garrett, for the record, and for those out listening in. Both this ordinance is a comprehensive plan ordinance, and the next one, which is the corresponding land development regulation ordinance, have been before you. They were before you in March. After discussions with city attorney, Mr. Smits, we determined that there had been enough change based on DEO's comments between last fall and their approval, and then you seeing it in March, that it should come back for one more hearing. So both ordinance 2019-12, and as it will be read in a minute, ordinance 2019-13, you saw in March, precisely as you're seeing it this evening. This is just in an abundance of caution, essentially a second hearing based on the March meetings. And with that, I would request approval of ordinance 2019-12, and then as we read 13, that as well. And I appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor, I move
Council
to approve
comments.
2019-12.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Zig. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, I think that was San Martin. All right, council comments, any? Seeing none, hearing none. I guess, is this a roll call, Diane?
Yes. Yes.
All
it
right,
is.
call the roll, please.
Councilmember Zig,
Yes.
Councilmember San Martin,
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gonzalez,
Yes.
Mayor Cook,
Yes.
motion approved. Ordinance
All right.
2019-13, amending the city's land development regulations, chapter 103, table 103.15.2, density, intensity, and dimensions for zoning districts, chapter 107, article 5, setback and heights, section 107.40, maximum height, and figure 107.40.1, building height measurement, increasing the maximum building height to 42 feet to provide compensation for increases in required elevations for the new FEMA firm maps, providing for severability, providing for the repeal of conflicting provisions, providing for the transmittal of this ordinance to the State Department of Economic Opportunity after final adoption by the City Council, and providing for an effective date.
Council, do we have a motion?
Move approval.
Vargas is moving and San Martin is seconding. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Vargas,
Yes.
Councilmember San Martin,
Yes.
Councilmember Zig,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gonzalez,
Louis, say it. He's nodding yes.
okay, Mayor Cook,
Yes.
motion carried. Ordinance 2019-16, amending the Cities of Marathon Comprehensive Plan, modifying Chapter 1, Future Land Use, Table 1-1, Future Land Use Densities and Intensities, and intending to modify Policy 1-3.3.4, encourage redevelopment of tourist resort campground facilities to allow uses designated as permanent RVs to be utilized as transient residential units, RV lots, meeting all the requirements of such uses and that hold no monetary value as transient units and cannot be transferred as transient units to be allowed on properties with a FLUM designation of residential high or mixed use commercial that also allow permanent Florida Building Code compliant residences, providing for severability, providing for the repeal of conflicting provisions, providing for the transmittal of this ordinance to the State Department of Economic Opportunity for final adoption, and providing for an effective date. And I'm going to go ahead and read also ordinance 2020-02 as it goes along with that. Amending the City of Marathon Land Development Regulations, Chapter 103, Article 3, Table 103.15.2 to allow uses designated as permanent RVs to be utilized as transient residential units, RV lots, meeting all requirements of such uses and that hold no monetary value as transient units and cannot be transferred as transient units to be allowed on properties zoned residential mobile home or mixed use that also allow permanent Florida Building Code compliant residences, providing for severability, providing for the repeal of conflicting provisions, providing for the transmittal of this ordinance to the State Department of Economic Opportunity for adoption, and providing for an effective date.
Okay, George, do you want to do 16 first? And since ordinance 2020-02 is a first hearing, I guess we ought to vote on that separately, right?
Yes, sir. Thank
Okay.
you. And the ordinance before you, as indicated, this is the third time you've seen it. I think twice you saw it last fall before we transmitted it to DEO. Otherwise, you don't see any changes between then and now. So I would recommend it forward to you as the ordinance you saw last fall when we transmitted it to DEO.
Cancel a motion.
Yeah, go
Mr.
ahead, I'm
Mayor, I
sorry.
would move to approve 2019-16.
Second.
Zig motion,
May I
Vargas
have
second.
May I have a sec? Can I speak real quick? Sorry,
And the
Mr. Mayor.
barrister wants to speak. Please,
Just
you are
please
recognized.
state for the record, is there any public input on these public hearings A, B, and C?
Oddly enough, the way this was set up by you had public comments way back
know.
at number 5.
I know, I'm being asked to request if there's any further public input. So
Oh, yes, sir. Very well.
relaying said request.
Very well. I'm sorry. My apologies.
No, that's fine. I understand.
Is there a public-
I'm being asked to ask for more. If that makes
Will there
sense.
be any public comment, please, Diane or Galen?
Not that I'm aware of.
All parties that were on the phone have been unmuted.
Unmuted. Okay. So hearing no public comment, would there be a motion, which was Zieg for the motion, Bartis for the second? Diane, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Zieg,
Yes.
Councilmember Bartis,
Yes.
Councilmember San Martin,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gonzalez,
Yes.
Mayor Cook,
Yes.
motion carries.
Is there a motion for and/or any public comment for ordinance 2020-02?
Move approval.
Second.
Bartis moving approval.
Second.
Second for Louis Gonzalez. Diane, please call the roll.
Councilmember Bartis,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gonzalez, Councilmember San Martin,
Yes.
Councilmember Zieg,
Yes.
Mayor Cook,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right. Looks like we are at Echo. Resolution 2020-34, or do you want to hit 2020-35 first?
35 was on consent,
Okay, very well.
and I can go ahead and read 34. Resolution 2020-34, condemning racism and reaffirming Marathon's commitment to fight for racial justice and human and civil rights for all, providing for an effective date.
All right, I believe this was brought forth by Mr. Bartis, and I would offer that he come to the floor and give a little, brother.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very much appreciated. A week ago, yesterday, something really amazing happened in our community, and I could not be more proud of our islands. Sheriff Ramsey, Key West Police Chief Sean Brandenburg marched with demonstrators. They were protesting what happened to George Floyd and the systemic racism that occurs in parts of America. And I realize this proposed resolution may not have gone through the normal procedure, so I apologize to my fellow council members for that, but I did believe the time was right to do this now. And while the five of us up here may not agree on everything, I do know that we are all committed to the principles put forth in this resolution. So I think it's important that we formally adopt these principles as official city policy by vote of this council. And I also understand that this is just a start. We really need to have a conversation in our communities around the country, and we really need to listen to each other as well. There's a lot of work to be done, and let's get started. And I'd like to read the text of the resolution here before making a motion so that we will all know where the city does indeed stand on this issue. Whereas the city of Marathon, its mayor, city council, Sheriff Rick Ramsey, and the entire Monroe County Sheriff's Office and Marathon staff and employees citywide are deeply saddened by the tragic events that have recently occurred across the country. And whereas racism and hate have no place in our city, and we are committed to working actively against all forms of racism. We are committed to safeguarding our community against the damages that racism causes and to ensuring that the constitutional rights of every person who lives, works, and visits our great city are protected. And whereas true Marathon citizens oppose racism in any form, anywhere it exists, reaffirming that people of all races, ethnicities, cultures, and faiths contribute to Marathon's strength and well-being. And whereas the city of Marathon truly appreciates the overwhelming support we receive daily from this great community, and it is our promise to each of you that we will work diligently every day to exceed your expectations in all aspects of citywide operations, including law enforcement duties provided by the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. Now therefore be it resolved, Section 2, the City Council of the City of Marathon, Florida stands steadfast with all citizens of Marathon against racism and reaffirm its commitment to fighting for racial justice and human and civil rights for all. And with that, I will move approval.
Thank you, Councilman Bartis.
Second by Zig.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Do we need to vote on this, or we just give a head nod, or how would we do this one?
Mayor?
It's not required.
All right. Well, hearing no,
I think
hearing no
somebody else
negatives,
was trying to-
this motion passes. And I would say that while we all do disagree vehemently at times on different items, one thing that fair and equal treatment of all people is always what we strive for.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to jump you. Go
That's all
ahead.
right.
Councilman San Martin, please.
I'd like to thank Councilman Bartis for bringing this forward. I would also, if he's agreeable to it, I would love to see a line added in there that we also stand together against any form of police brutality and as a city condemn any such action.
I would agree.
Very well then. Motion and second as amended, I suppose, is passed for resolution 2020-34.
And Mr. Mayor, if I could ask one more time too, I do want to extend my sincere appreciation to our sheriff and our local law enforcement for the job they do every day.
Yes, we do live in a great place. Sheriff, would you like to weigh in, please?
I do, Councilman Bartis. First off, a great resolution. Thank you so much for that. I want to thank us for being included in that. I think the city knows the sheriff's office after all these years, myself, Captain Hiller, our stance, and we don't tolerate this. We take pride in policing ourselves and being focused on community-oriented policing at all levels with all citizens of our community. So we are definitely supportive of the resolution. And just like the Councilman Bartis said, I've been at all these protests myself, side by side with our citizens, showing support and unity and taking a stance against officers who make poor decisions. 99% of officers in America are great, hardworking men and women who put that uniform every day, jeopardize their lives and safety to protect others. But there are those 1% that don't deserve to wear the badge and embarrass all of us. So that's a sad thing for all of us. So we have to continue as law enforcement agencies weed out those people which discredit the badge. But we see 1% issues across the world. You know, state, local, federal, military, police, fire, rescue, civilians, corporate jobs, government, politicians. We just, I know the sheriff's office doesn't condone that. So, but again, thank you for the support, the friendship, the partnership with the city, and we're on the same sheet of music for sure, same team. So thank you all. Captain, anything?
Yes, sir. I agree 100%.
Thank you all.
Thank you, gentlemen. I would just like to say that I do thank you for the work that you do. And, it is kind of troubling that the law enforcement community as a whole is taking the brunt of, well, in humanity, we have some mostly good people and we have a few bad eggs, and it's a shame. He may have even been an okay person that did a bad thing at the wrong time. Who knows? I'm not his judge. He will be judged though. And I am so glad to live where I live, in a place where I believe our law enforcement works evenly for everyone. Thank you, sir. And thank you, Captain. All right. I guess it's time for council comments. Let's start with Councilman San Martin. Actually, sorry. Let's start with Councilman Zieg. We'll go anti-alphabetical.
As the anti-alphabetical leader, then, let me begin. First of all, I want to thank all the efforts that were made to make this meeting come off. I think tonight was very smooth. My opinion about the 4th of July mirrors very much that of the fire chief, that I'm thinking that we need more information. My personal view is that I probably will not attend because of the size of the crowds that we usually have on 4th of July. But I think going ahead with planning at this stage is a smart thing to do. And thank you to Galen and to Dirk Smits for your efforts tonight. One thing that's been missing from my comments the last month or two has been a historical perspective. So I have
And
one
here we are.
brief history to share with you. It was on this date in 1973 that Secretariat won the Triple Crown, setting new records at the 1.25 mile track in Louisville, Kentucky for the Kentucky Derby. The timing was 1 minute 59 seconds. Remember, this was 1973. No horse has ever broken the 2-minute record other than Secretariat. It still stands today. And thus concludes our history lesson. Thank you very much and good night.
All right, next is, I think, San Martin. Would you please? Sir?
That's me. Thank you. So since we won't have another meeting before the 4th of July, I want to wish everybody a happy Independence Day. Take a minute and please reflect on why this country is so great and concentrate on our common goals and our similarities more than our differences. You know, the whole idea of the beach celebration is, you know, for everybody to be together and really have a good time. I was definitely in favor of having the celebration. I would encourage people, like you just heard, if you're not comfortable with it, you know, you should stay home. If you are in the high risk category, you should definitely consider staying home. And I think the people who were there will hopefully do their best to try and protect the rest of us. I think we're going to have a lot more locals out this year at the beach than visitors. And I did put, just for fun, an unofficial Facebook poll, just out of curiosity, should we have business as usual at the beach? And we ended up at, let's see, we ended up at 69% yes, 31% no. So the town is a little bit split on whether they think this is a great idea or not. But I think we can be done safely with our Parks and Rec department taking care of keeping things clean in between, and that's it. And just wish everybody a happy 4th of July and be safe.
Thank you so much. Vice Mayor Gonzalez, we will go with you.
Thank you. Once again, I'd like to thank the entire staff for all of the work that they do on a daily basis. Sheriff, thank you to you and your staff for all of the work that you guys put in on at the checkpoint, and to all of the guys and women that volunteered to go out there from the different municipalities. Thank you. You guys played a big role in getting us to where we are today. I'd also like to say happy 4th of July to everyone. Celebrate. Be careful. And I'm very much looking forward to July 14th, where we don't have to do these Zoom meetings anymore.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilman Barfus.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and I'd like to thank my fellow council members and all the people that participated. We had some good discussions this evening. It was a pretty wide range of topics, both local and with some federal implications as well. It is going to be Independence Day really soon, and as we celebrate America's birthday, it's time to think about some of the other things this day in history. This might not be as important as Secretariat, but you never know. It was this date in 1954 that in the McCarthy hearings, that Attorney Joseph Walsh asked Senator Joseph McCarthy, "Sir, have you no sense of decency?" Well, it's one of the great moments in the history of the Congress of the United States, and it really helped get America back on the track toward some of the freedoms that we enjoy without, and especially the freedom of being, you know, blacklisted and picked on by your own federal government. So we declared independence from a tyrant in England all those years ago, and freedom is something we need to be completely vigilant about. And I believe that we can do better for all of our citizens, no matter what their race, color, or creed. And that is the goal that we share. That's the goal that we strive to make our lives just a little bit better every year, every day. And that's what we're all committed to right here. With that, I say thank you very much. Look forward to an in-person meeting in council chambers next month. Happy July 4th.
Councilman Bartis, thank you. Thank you all, councilmen. I'll be the alphabetical. I'd like to first thank all the staff for all that they're doing and have done, especially with all the confusion and the, you actually have to get dressed to come into work now and all of those lovely things. Welcome back to City Hall. I know you were getting more work done at home than you were at City Hall. Let's try to blend all of those things. I would really like to put out a lot of thanks for the MCSO and Marathon Fire Rescue for all the work they do on a daily basis. I get tweets every day of things that are happening that MCSO takes care of for us, and defunding is not an option. Not an option. We need law and order. That said, personal responsibility. It comes down to, and as you've heard tonight, the council, and I'm not going to speak for them, but we don't seem to really appreciate mandatory items. Now, there's a lot of difference in conversation about masking and whether we should be mandatory or whether we shouldn't be. I think we should all be trying and striving to do the right thing, which is, if you know, like myself, I have a member of my family who is immune compromised. I know what I can do and I know what I cannot do. And if I have to go into public, I'm going to wear a mask. I don't care who's looking at me. I don't really care. And I hope that you just kind of get over that awkward uneasiness of being the only person in the room that's wearing a mask. And hopefully people around you will do the same thing because they see your strength and they see what you're doing for the safety of yourself and the safety of the people around you, because really you're protecting them more than yourself. Wash your hands, it's been 3 months. Let's keep doing that. Just keep washing your hands. That seems to be keeping the numbers low here, regardless of who's coming in. While the checkpoint was up, we still had lots of workers. We still had lots of things going on here. We had a lot less people here, and it kept our numbers flat. They did an awesome job, all of the volunteers. But really, when it comes down to it, just wash your hands, wear a mask, take precautions, do the right things, and let the people from Miami know if that's the problem. Let them know how you feel. You guide them. All right, this is our house. You let them know how it is. But be gentle. It comes down to personal responsibility. And on a historical note, in just a few weeks, my father helped rescue the 101st Airborne in Bastogne. Just a little note. Thank you to him. He's deceased now, but D-Day happened, and I hope we don't all forget what all of those people risked for us. So with that, I will say happy 4th of July. Be safe, do the right things, guys. And cheerio. Happy summer. I think this meeting is closed. Everybody coughs, everybody moves.
Have a great night, everybody.